So in this video for Workshop 5 of the SFI funded Coding and Pair Teaching project, we're going to be looking at projectiles. So we're going to create a Flinging Pizzas game. So again, we're going to answer the questions, the who, the where, and the what. So the who, we've got a player, we've got an enemy, and we're now going to have a projectile. So our player is the hero character from the gallery. The enemy is the monkey character from the gallery. And then the projectile, we're going to have a pizza. So the hero is going to be flinging pizza at the enemy. And then the background, we're going to create a very basic background with blue sky and green grass. So you can see here on the code, in the onStart, we're creating our player as the hero. We're creating our enemy as the monkey, and then we're setting our background image as we mentioned previously. And then the other thing that we're doing here is we're setting the enemy position here. So we're setting the monkey position and we're setting it to the bottom half of the screen. So we're picking a random 0 to 160 on the X. So that's anywhere over and back. So remember, X goes over and back. And then for the Y, we're picking a random position from 60 to 120. So remember, the screen goes from 0 to 120. So if we're just going random from 60 to 120, we're going to keep it down here on the bottom half of the screen. So let's just go to Make Code Arcade and make a start with this now. So we're going to create a new project. We're going to call it Workshop 5, Flinging Pizzas. And I'm just going to click Create. So we have our onStart. We're going to create our player sprite. So if we just click on the sprites, pull across, set my sprite to, and I'm just going to click in here, go to the gallery. Now again, you could create your own one if you want. You could draw your own, but I'm just going to go for the hero sprite here and click Done. I'm going to go to sprites again, and I'm going to set my sprite to sprite. I'm going to go to the gallery, and I'm just going to go and find the monkey, which is somewhere down here. Again, it doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm just going to choose the first one here and click Done. Now again, I'm just going to rename my variables. So I'm going to call the first one hero, and I'm just going to rename the second one, and I'm going to set the second one to monkey. So that's creating both of my characters. Now here again, I have a player. I want to make an enemy for the second one. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to I'm going to set background image, click on the gray block, and then I'm going to select my rectangle tool. I'm going to select my green, and I'm just going to draw it all the way across. Now for some reason it doesn't seem to allow me to do it all the way across. I'm just going to do another little rectangle that does actually go all the way across, and then I'm just going to fill in these bits here. Now I can zoom in because I can see that there's a little bit of a problem here on the right hand side, and I can just fill that in just like that, and there is my green grass. Now I can just zoom back out again, and what I want to do in the top is I want to go for my light blue, click the bucket tool, and that is my blue sky and my green grass. I click Done. So I've just done that very quickly, but you can take a little bit more time doing that. So I can just click Done there. So I have my player and my enemy, and now I have my background. And you can see here what we have. Now the two of them are sitting on top of each other, so obviously we're going to need to change the position of the monkey. So remember, we're going to go to sprites here, and we're setting the position. So I'm going to select that. Now again, it's going to have an error here because I don't have a variable called my sprite anymore. So if I click on that and select monkey, remember we're going to go for a random X position anywhere from 0 to 160. So pick random. So I've got pick random 0 to 160 here on the X, and then remember for the Y, we're picking a random value between 60 and 120. So you can see he's gone up here to the top. My Y is 0, so he's up at the top, and it's just picking a random position. If I restart it, it's going to pick another random position and another random position, as you can see there. But my Y position is incorrect, so I'm going to pick a random here and go from 60 to 120. So it should be down the bottom of the screen now. So you can see here, every time I restart, he's picking another random position in the bottom of the screen. So that's my initial functionality. So this is the functionality that we've created. The next thing we want to do now is when the game updates, so we have this on game update every 500 milliseconds. And what we want to do is we want to create a projectile. So we've seen the game update before, and now we've got this new block for projectiles. So we want to create a projectile from the hero sprite. So if we go to sprites under projectiles, there are two different kinds of projectile that we can create. We can create a projectile from a particular sprite, or we can set a projectile from the side. Now in our case, we're going to set a projectile from the hero sprite. And once we do that, so here we're going to set projectile to projectile pizza from hero, and we're going to give it a velocity. So this is what we're going to do. So every second, once every second, we're going to have a pizza being flung from the hero, and the velocity is going to be minus 50 to plus 50 on the X and minus 50 to plus 50 on the Y. So it's going to be going in lots of different directions. So sometimes it'll be thrown up, sometimes it'll be thrown down, and that's going to give us a randomness. So I'm just going to go and create that projectile now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to game and on game update every 500 milliseconds. And we're going to change the 500 to 1 second, which is 1000 milliseconds. That's our first thing. So every second we're going to do something. Go into sprites. And here we're going to go down, keep going down until we get projectiles. And we're setting our projectile to projectile from sprite. So I'm going to take the first one this time, and I'm going to drop it into on game update every 1000 milliseconds. I'm going to click on the grey block, and I'm going to go to gallery. Now again, you can create your own projectiles. You can draw your own if you want. We're not going to do that in this project, but in other projects you can certainly do that. I'm going to select the pizza. Now again, be careful. If I choose this pizza here, it's 16 by 16 size. If I go back to the gallery, you can already see this one is a more high resolution version, which we've talked about previously. So if I select that one, it's 32 by 32 and it'll just be too big. So I'm going to go back to the gallery and I'm just going to select the smaller version. So again, remember this is a more lower resolution version, but it will do perfectly for what we wanted. So I'm setting projectile to projectile pizza. Now again, it's got an error here. You can see it's coming in straight lines because my velocity X is 50, my velocity Y is 50. So that's going to come in straight lines from the top left-hand corner. So a couple of things I need to change here. I need to change the from my sprite to from hero. So now it's going to go from the hero. And it's always going to go from the middle down to the bottom right-hand side. So that doesn't make for a very engaging game because it's always going to come from the same place. So if the monkey isn't in that place, it's never going to hit the monkey. So we're going to bring in the random nature. So again, we find that in math. And if I come down here, I pick random and drop one in on top of the X. And I find another pick random and I drop it in on top of the Y. So you can see here now, I've got a pick random 0 to 10 on both the X and Y. So it's going, you can see here, it's going quite slowly. So obviously because the velocity is quite small, it's going to move very slowly. So I'm going to change that. And it's always going, because it's always positive, it's always going from the middle down here to the right-hand side. So I don't want that either. So I want anything from minus 50 to plus 50 on the X. And that's going to give it, it's going to be reasonably fast and sometimes very slow. And you can see now it's starting to go in all these different directions. But again, our Y velocity is static, or is more or less static between 0 and 10. So I want to change that to minus 50 to plus 50 as well. So I'm going to go to full screen mode here now. And you can see that sometimes it's being thrown up and sometimes it's being thrown down, and it's just going in lots of different directions. Can you see the difference in the speed as well? So remember, we've set the velocity to -50 to +50. So sometimes it's going to be closer to 0, sometimes it's going to be closer to either the positive or the negative, and sometimes it is thrown in the direction of the monkey. So what we have so far is we have our player, we have our enemy, we have our background image. We also have the position of the enemy, so we're putting it in a random position. And it's always going to be at the bottom of the screen. Now, if you wanted to change that it was coming any part of the screen, you could certainly change this here from the 60 to 0, and that would ensure that it would be any part of the screen. And that might make for a better game. And again, you can test that later and try that yourself. But you can see now, every 1 second, we're getting a pizza being flung in lots of different directions here. And sometimes it's hitting the monkey, but we're not doing anything about that at the minute. So in the next video, I'm going to look at what would we do when they collide. But for now, this is our functionality. So this is our basic game. And now we want to introduce some additional improvements to it. And that's what we'll look at in the next video.